First, I wanted to also to say that, of course, we need to look at common operational picture and threat assessment. Of course, the European Union was working a lot on this threat assessment, common operation picture, and obviously security strategic environment is that we need to understand, and obviously it's constantly changing, and we have lots of uncertainties right now. Of course, we deal with quite a wide range of different threats. Expansion of different disruptive technologies may affect our cognitive understanding. Also, we need to be to understand that we have all this significant stress that is put also on societies. And of course, it's a big question of psychological capacity, how we can deal with this. Also, as we think about the question of psychology, cognition, and also thinking about role of information, what we need also to understand that, of course, the rapid flow of information encourages us to think fast, because we need to really take decisions fast. We need to think how we can also take this decision right, and what is our impact on this. And if we think about cognitive spectrum, of course, it's quite difficult to process all this uncertainty, all these threats. Looking at also this quite changing strategic security environment, and we need to be sure that we understand the threats, we have common operation picture, but at the same time that we deal with them in the right way. So if we think about that deterrence is in a cognitive dimension as well, we need to look at also decision-making process. And I remember one of the speakers looked at this hacking the OODA loop, how we can, how adversaries can deal with this, and step by step the process, like observing, orienting, deciding, acting, all these steps we know, but we need to be sure to understand where this role of information and other, of course, the technological spectrum can influence us. So when we are, for example, in step one of cognitive precision, decision-making, when we think about understanding the problem, assessment of situation, decision-making, looking at also different parameters, how we think about also a security environment. We gather, of course, intelligence, we identify threats, we look at strategy, vision building, but we have different external influences. So we think about psychological, legal means, and also information that fits cognition. So here we can understand that, of course, when we look at disinformation or deception through false information that can paralyze opinion, we, of course, need to understand that this step is quite crucial in our decision-making process. So there are lots of complexities involved when we deal with this issue. So as we think about war, because we look at war, cognitive warfare, we think about how war is an exercise of will, how we can also look at deterrence as in a cognitive domain. We need to be sure to understand that sometimes through information, through different operations, simulation, destination, deception, and subversion, we deal with this cognitive warfare. So as a researcher, I'm thinking about concept and look at different criteria, thinking how we can include all these dimensions, because it's quite tricky. From military perspective, I know that, of course, we have this new NATO Stratcom doctrine right now, and we need to also understand this lens through which we view information environment, because cognitive dimension is just one dimension. We have virtual dimension and physical dimension as well. Virtual dimension includes cyber and technology, and physical dimension, networks and infrastructure, but cognitive dimension, where we have will and psychology, that is very crucial. So if we think about concept itself, because right now there are lots of debates about cognitive warfare, what it is, how we can define, how we can look at also human dimension, and looking at also how we can think about all these means of cognitive warfare. So if we look at weaponization of public opinion, if we think about that, of course, it's also that cognitive warfare includes malign actions in general aimed at disrupting decision-making process. We need to include different means here. So it's information psychological operations, but also offensive cyber warfare. And what is really important is a role of technology as enablers. So as we think about technological paradigm, because right now all tech companies are working on different technological spectrum of devices, thinking about social media and metaverse. We understand that there are lots of opportunities in this domain, but as an intelligence community, we need also to think about threat perception and also how that can be used against society, against this psychological cognition, thinking about how adversity can use it. And if we look at, for example, thinking about all this technology, emerging technologies, and influence of these emerging technologies, we need to be careful here because, of course, threat perception is high, and we also need to be aware of, for example, micro-targeting through across artificial intelligence, deep fakes, etc. So because they play a big role, of course, and can disrupt and can shape a perception, can build all this distrust and weaken alliances. So when we think about concept, because right now I see that there are lots of different articles and also academia is trying to look at it from different perspectives, and also we need to think institutions-wise how we can look at it if we think about it as a new domain, and also in terms of concept, transform it into doctrine and so on. So if I summarize what is written in different academic literature, we see that cognitive warfare integrates cyber information, psychological, social engineering capabilities to achieve its ends. So if we think about the role of emerging technologies, it's very crucial here, but at the same time, also role of neuroscience that can create a new security paradigm, because we need to think about this co-influence of both. So when we look at cognitive warfare and its impact, we see that, of course, it can affect the understanding and interpretation of situation, because the objective, obviously, from the adversary perspective is to change the interpretation of situation and also target command and control of operation to enable decision superiority and create all this alternative reality and also change shape perception, so confuse. And when we think about cognitive issues, we need to understand that every citizen can be weaponized and serve as a target. So from intelligence perspective, this is very dangerous, because we need to understand that we deal with all different groups and different sociological actors. So we need to, of course, think about how adversary can use it, what is the mean here, what is the objective, and we also need to understand that how we can invest better in information security to protect and also to work better in terms of resilience. So there are lots of questions, and when we think about China and Russia, how they see cognitive warfare. Because we talk about concepts, it's always difficult to translate it into others' views, how we see it, what does it mean, and if I think about, of course, the substance of cognitive warfare. So if we look at China, what we see that, of course, what takes place not only in the physical domain for them of land, sea, air, and space information, but also in the domain of human cognition. It's how China looks at cognitive warfare, while for Russia, they use this concept of information and psychological confrontation. So for them, when they look at cognitive warfare, they refer to the concept of information psychological confrontation. So what is also interesting to distinguish thinking about autocracies, because right now there is a huge debate, so democracies against autocracies, how we look at it. Autocracies, they of course use technology to achieve total control of information access and control its population. So what we see when we look at China and Russia, of course, we look at how they use this technology to achieve this control of information and also how they control their population. So when we look at Russia, of course, it's control of information inside of their society and projection of these right messages outside, so manipulation of international public opinion. So when we look at cognitive warfare from China, so looking at their perspective, it consists of public opinion warfare, psychological warfare to shock soldier civilians, and legal warfare. And China and Russia, they of course use cyber and also different digital means of weaponization of artificial intelligence and of course different technologies to impact decision-making process. So it's quite complicated and of course it's simplified picture here. We need to think about case studies, but in general we understand that autocracies, they like to control this information access, control their population, and that is how they look at this cognitive warfare spectrum. So the main question for us, because it's all how we need to think about what we need to do, how we can invest in cognitive security, how we can build this whole of government approach better. So obviously cognitive warfare requires a whole of government approach, that we know. But what we need to do better, and I see it also from a perspective of different tech companies, different stakeholders, is how we can promote this integration between cyber information domains and a focus on information security better and resilience of common control system. So if we think about, for example, cognitive warfare, and we look at that it includes also all different spectrums, so thinking about cyber, looking at information. So of course we need a better monitoring alert system because it could help to identify these cognitive warfare campaigns and track them. Also trying to look at different case studies, thinking about Russia, thinking about China, looking at how they operate, project their power in neighborhood, how they look at it from different perspectives. And we need, of course, build strategic awareness because this is very important in order to understand the adversary and strategic environment, but also to be able to look at different risks and also thinking about early recognition of different vulnerabilities. Also, what is essential here is to think about technological resilience because right now, different tech companies, they invest, of course, in thinking about how they can build better technology, for example, artificial intelligence, etc. So we need to think about how we can design this artificial intelligence technology better in terms of resilience. And also, when we think about societal resilience, there are lots of questions because we need to think about whole of government approach, and also think about how we can implement it at national level better. So if I think about complementary approach from European Union, NATO's perspective, because we talked about Article 3 and we know about baseline requirements. Right now, European Union is working on a critical entities resilience directive. It's quite complementary because it covers also other areas, thinking about, for example, banking, financial market, infrastructure, health, drinking water, wastewater, etc. So there are lots of complementarity if we think about this baseline requirements. But when we deal with society, of course, it's quite tricky because we need to be able to invest in psychological defense of our society. Look at also morale, because it's very, very important, especially when we deal with uncertainties, when we look also at all this security environment. And we also need to look at how we can build better resilience to disinformation propaganda in general. So there are lots of questions here, how we can do it better, but this is very important when we deal with cognitive warfare.